How you doing?
Fabulous.
Awesome. So far, so good. Off to the
Yeah.
races.
Yeah. We had Dr. Kate. You can't beat Dr. Kate. So she's fabulous. So are you able to share your screen?
We just need to view or slideshow. That's what we want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yeah. I can see you, but I don't see your screen.
Okay. No slides yet. Okay. Did we share screen? We said it.
Do you
It's
have your
saying,
slides up?
Yeah.
And at the bottom you see share screen?
can you see us now?
Go to the Zoom area where she is.
Go on the bottom where it says share screen.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I just need to.
And then you can hit slideshow. Not share,
Let's.
but slideshow.
Okay,
Okay.
girls. You are good. So
Perfect. We did it. So now it's not just the talking heads with talking with their hands the whole time, like last time,
well,
right?
yeah, and you're not the only ones, please. You don't know how many people I had on the phone this morning or different things, so don't feel bad, but we're here. So
There
I'm
you
just glad, I'm just glad we did it this morning. It
Exactly.
worked.
But yeah,
so
we were looking at the lineup. It's such a great lineup. And we've been listening for the last 15 minutes with Dr. Kate. That was awesome.
yeah, she's wonderful. So this is Ellie Baldwin and Lisa Keith from Sunway Senior Living Concierge. I work very closely with them. I think what they do is one of the most important things after support groups in in caregiving. And today they're going to talk about the Caregiver Life Jacket. They're full of fabulous information, and just know when you get a chance, look at their website because they're here to help you today, but they're here to help you all the time. Even if you're not in need right away for your loved one to move into a community, there's still a plethora of things they can help you with. So thank you, ladies. The floor is yours.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
No, thank you for having us. And we will definitely be sharing at the end about our website and caregiver blog and all of the resources because that is something that we're extremely passionate about. So I'm glad that you brought that up. But the caregiver life jacket and avoiding burnout, this is something that Lisa and I personally, as well as just Sunways Senior Living Concierge in general, is so passionate about because what we do on a daily basis is essentially assist seniors and specifically their family caregivers on really navigating the process and making sure that they have the information, the care options, and the resources to be supported
Yeah.
through that journey. We're going to be talking about three main sections today. And I think Linda will be keeping an eye on the chat. So any questions that pop up that you want us to cover, please put in there because we'll either take those questions in between sections or at the end.
Right.
Because the biggest thing that we want to make sure is happening today is that you're walking away with something that's valuable to you and that you feel seen and feel supported. So diving kind of into our sections, right? The three main sections that we're going to be talking about and that we have some slides on is one, the value of implementing a gratitude practice if you're not doing that yet. Number two, planning ahead and how valuable that can be to avoid caregiver burnout. And also number three, knowing when to ask for help, which might be the hardest when it comes to caregivers, right? Sounds easy for you to say, is usually what we get. But those will be the three sections that we're diving into.
Yeah,
So
and asking for help doesn't mean after you're under the water and are drowning totally.
absolutely.
We need to
No,
ask for help before then.
exactly. And we are definitely going to be highlighting that and actually sharing some tips on how to actually do that in real life, not just the concept of that, but
Yeah.
how do I actually do that? How do I
Yeah.
ask for help?
Yeah.
As simple as it sounds, it could be very, very difficult. So the first area that we're going to be talking about is gratitude. and specifically implementing a gratitude practice. And this is something that Lisa and I do personally on a daily basis because we talk about that and how valuable it's been for our lives, right? And I think I've been doing a daily gratitude practice for around 5 or 6 years now. And for some reason, gratitude is like a trigger word for some people. It's kind of like the idea of self-care. Self-care doesn't mean bubble baths necessarily, right? Just like gratitude does not mean like sitting in the corner in the woods and just thinking about how amazing your life is. You know, when you're struggling, especially through a caregiver journey, you're not feeling a lot of gratitude, right? Which is why we're talking about it. But the thing that shifted my just idea of what gratitude is that it's not ignoring negative things in your life and struggles. That doesn't go away with a gratitude practice. It's the idea of having like one of those old school headlamps on, right? Of the flashlights, but it's a headlamp. And it's the idea of shifting that headlamp to focusing on the struggles and the negativity, or focusing over here in the positive things that are in your life. That doesn't make that other pile of things go away. It just shifts your focus, right?
Which is so powerful.
100%. And I think it takes some of the pressure and some of the guilt away of feeling like you are not acknowledging the reality. The realities aren't going away, right? It's just shifting that focus. So hopefully that's impactful.
One of my caregivers, before she goes to bed every night, you know, they say write down 3 things that you're grateful for, which is really easy. But she writes 3 things that she's grateful for that happened today. So I'm happy that mom took a bath without a problem. I'm happy I'm grateful I didn't lose my patience. You know, I'm grateful that I have another day with my mom.
Yeah. And it's amazing when you focus on the small victories, how much that can change your whole mental
demeanor.
State.
Exactly. Because what ends up happening when you are doing that, and Linda, I think you make a great point about how important it is to be focusing on what happened that day. And we're going to be talking about too some specific practices. So we're going to talk about the why here for a second, but then we're going to give you a couple examples of literally today, simple things that you could do to actually put this into real life. But one of the things that make the biggest difference is if you are really focusing on something unique that happened, minimally 1, but it's perfect if you go to 3 that happened that day. Because if you don't allow yourself to repeat a previous piece of something you're grateful for, it forces your brain to be looking daily for something to be grateful for your practice. Because I'll tell you something, like there are plenty of days that I wake up and I'm like, there's nothing, right? You're feeling that heaviness of the world, but it makes you throughout the day say, you know what? Somebody let you step in front of them in line at Publix because you only had a couple items. You think to yourself, I'm saving that for later in case I can't think of anything, right? So you're training your brain to look for these things. And that's really where the shift happens.
You gals know what I do every morning. I go out, I go for my walk, I say my prayers, and I take a picture. And so every morning I wake up looking for something beautiful and I find it in 5 minutes. Yeah. And then I get to share it. I share it on Facebook, and then I separately text it to 30 different people with a Bible verse. Well, what a way to start the day.
Right.
100%.
Simple.
Yeah.
And anybody can do that.
For sure. And I mean, before we kind of dive into some of the specifics, maybe just driving through the why, right? And some of these reasons to implement a practice.
Yep. So the first one we'll touch on is shifting perspective. And we were actually just talking about this. Perspective and your thoughts, like that becomes reality.
Yep.
So when you're stuck in that hard place as a caregiver, and it's the same thing day in and day out, and it's stressful, really shifting your perspective on it and finding the little positives that there are can make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Embracing change. So, the way I like to think about it, and I talk to even my girls about this, like there's some things we just can't change. It's the reality. So just embracing it and finding a different approach when handling it can be really helpful.
Yep.
Turning your inner monologue positive.
Right.
So just like you were saying, there's lots of positive that you can find in situations. So just having that mindset can be a big game changer.
And just the awareness, I think, of the inner monologue. I mean, when we don't even realize how many phrases and mantras and thought patterns are instinctual and are like unconscious that we just go through, and continue to tell ourselves that even the awareness of it is the first step to correcting,
yes.
And trying to stop.
The majority of my drive here, I was thinking about, I do not like doing public speaking, and even on Zoom, this is really hard for me. And, waking up and being like, oh, I'm so nervous. I feel like I'm going to throw up. And then thinking about our presentation today.
Yeah.
And like, you know what? I'm putting all these thoughts in my head and this is becoming my reality. So let me think about how great it's going to go. Because I have Linda here, I have Elli by my side. So really just, making the situation positive and telling yourself, giving yourself those positive.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we want to watch our words, because years ago when I was going through a really tough time, people would say to me, "How you doing?" And I'd say, "I'm hanging in there." And one day I thought, who wants to be hanging in there? That's a terrible thing to say. So I always say I'm joyful and grateful.
Yes.
Well, if you say that 10 times a day, guess what? You are.
Right.
And sometimes people look at me with a little shift of their heads, and I go, some days I'm joyfully challenged, but I am always grateful.
And that's okay.
Yeah, it's life.
Yep. 100%. I love that. And it's so interesting too, how it catches most people off guard, because what they're used to hearing is the unconscious response of people like, okay. And just not, even though even they've had the hardest day of their life and it's like, fine, or they've had the best day of their life and it's fine, so it is words.
And
words
I like that. And
matter.
it's unconscious and it's a natural response that a lot of us have. And so just being mindful is a huge, and it's a practice.
If you walk around all day going, I'm tired, guess what?
You're tired.
Yeah.
You need a nap.
Yeah.
Well, and with that too, I think like even reducing depression, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and those feelings, I mean, we're kind of touching on that, but if your mental health is not in the right place, all of these other things that as caregivers we should be doing, right? Like
I think
eating healthy, exercising, all of those things, that's great. But if mentally you're struggling so hard that it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? So it's like, if you're going to focus on improving one thing, it's getting that foundation solid, because those other things are easier to implement, And
maybe even like writing stuff down. Like when I'm starting to feel like this, here are a few things that I can do that are easy. I think like a super easy one is just moving. Like if you're in a stressful, if you're in a stressful situation, get outside and take a quick lap around the block.
Yeah.
It's amazing like what something that small can do to help, get your brain in a different place.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like what Linda was talking about, some of our points here, getting out in nature, and practicing gratitude, all of those things. That's essentially all of the things that you just explained that you did in your morning routine, right? Linda, so that's like absolutely no surprise. Another why for a gratitude practice is the anxiety piece, is lessening anxiety. I mean, I would say that when we talk to caregivers, that's one of the main emotions that they struggle with, right? Would you agree with that, Linda?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So
some good things to lessen your anxiety is, first of all, just be kind to yourself. I think that's a big one. Maybe keeping a journal. And I know you do some journaling stuff with caregivers. Sometimes it's just getting it out, right? Just writing it down and getting it out there.
Yep. 100%.
And sometimes maybe it's just sitting down and taking 3 breaths.
Yeah.
It's funny when you have to tell people to breathe.
Yeah. Well, I know, but again, it's like it's really, and that's one of the benefits of not only a gratitude practice, but it kind of goes hand in hand with almost a meditation. I mean, even if it's a
Mhm.
5-minute gratitude practice, you can see that as almost an
Yeah.
internal meditation of slowing down and being intentional about seeing what has actually been going on in your day. Same thing. It's like we're breathing or not breathing, right? Holding our breath and not even realizing we're holding our breath. So
Yeah.
just being more aware, and trying to slow down
Yeah.
to do those things for sure.
And join a support group.
Yeah,
That way you
exactly.
can relate with others. You can get out those feelings in a safe place.
Yeah.
And know that you're not alone out there.
Not alone, exactly. And the relief of stress with why you would implement a gratitude practice. I mean, I think that just goes hand in hand of what we've been talking about here, and that it really shifts. I mean, I feel like there's so many balls that you're juggling, and your focus, that headlamp, is on that stress and on that stress bubble constantly, and trying to figure out, not letting a plate drop, but also figuring out what's the next thing I have to do? What's the next thing I have to do? So shifting that focus to gratitude really kind of relieves that stress, and hopefully will help with laughing.
Yes.
Or an inspiring quote or something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
And then last but not least, improving sleep, which probably comes from the fact that if your stress, depression, anxiety, right, is lessening, as soon as you lay down, it like stops that movie of going on about all the things negative that happened that day, all the things you have to do as soon as your alarm goes off.
Yeah.
So all really good reasons, right? So that is the why. This slide here, you can see, is actually some specifics on how, right, to start a gratitude practice. One is a gratitude journal, which I know Lisa briefly talked about. We also have a gratitude jar there. I mean, I'll talk about these a little bit more in depth here in a second, but realistically, it's also as soon as your alarm goes off and before your feet hit the floor, laying there and forcing yourself to think about 3 things that happened yesterday that you're grateful for, and then get up. Right. So
starting your day,
it could be that simple. And it's not, and the day has started and you're off to the races. Right. But that's the energy that you're starting your day with. But if you want to kick it up a notch, right, like a emerald, bam, you could start a gratitude journal. You could take those things and actually write them down. The cool thing about that is that now you have a running record, right? Yeah. It's really neat to be able, and even on days or times where you are struggling big time, you actually have a book of gratitude that you wrote, not somebody else, that you wrote to remind yourself. And these are unique things every single day. It's not, a roof over my head or my significant other, right? It's really forcing yourself to look for these little things. Another really cute, unique idea is a gratitude jar. This is actually a great idea if you live with your loved one that you are caregiving for, or in a family dynamic, that you have a jar on the kitchen counter, and once a week, once a day, depending on the frequency that you want to do it, you write something little on a piece of paper and you put it in there. And throughout the month, it accumulates, and you almost make it a routine at the end of the month, or even at the end of the year. You have like a little ceremony where you go through and you look at all of these things and you're like, oh my gosh, I remember 3 Tuesdays ago when so-and-so called me from high school. I haven't spoken to them in 20 years. So it really is like a more collaborative way for you to bring a loved one in to the gratitude process.
Yeah.
Or practice.
And even more so if it's,
too.
Other family members that are also helping and caregiving.
Yeah.
And, stopping in, they can write something, and just kind of seeing everybody's perspective on, different things that brought them gratitude.
Yeah.
If I can say something about the gratitude journal. So years ago, my granddaughter had a gratitude journal before she went to bed. On the left-hand side of the page, she wrote 3 things that she was grateful for. And on the right-hand side of the page, she wrote 3 things that she was grateful for in advance.
Love that.
So I'm grateful for the A I got on my math test, or it could be I'm grateful for the doctor gave me time to speak, or whatever it is, because some of that stuff that you put out there.
Yes.
Love that. I'm taking that and putting that
kids.
right in my pocket.
Yeah.
Linda, I love that. Yeah, that's a double whammy, right? Of law of attraction as well as, gratitude for what's happened in the past. So that's awesome. Love it, love it. So obviously, as we said, any questions that you have on a gratitude practice, or also if you are somebody that has a gratitude practice that might be different than this, please comment in the section. We'll kind of go through that at the end when we're taking questions and whatnot, because learning from each other would be amazing. And yeah, we'll kind of cover that, but we're going to move to the next section here. Oh, before we actually do that, we're at the end, we have a free downloadable piece of paper that can get you started while you're waiting to go out and buy your journal. That's just something that you can print out today that gives you your area for those 3 different things. They're like little jar cutouts. So afterwards, Linda will send all of that out, since we have emails from registration, and that way everybody has that.
Okay.
All right. So section number 2, planning, and doing some forward thinking from a planning perspective. That phrase right there of stop overthinking says it perfectly, of the why this is so important. There is so much stress and anxiety that comes from worrying about the unknown. And
what does that do? It helps nothing.
Exactly. No problems are solved. No problems are solved worrying about it.
Makes you feel worse and makes things a lot harder.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's usually what it is. It's just like, it's the cliche as old as time of like worrying about the boogeyman in the closet, right? There's nothing there, but it's the unknown. It's what's behind the door. Same thing in the caregiver journey. We can all agree that it's a roller coaster, and it's a lot of times that we're having to be reactionary, and we don't know what's around the next corner. And that could be the next hour, the next day, the next doctor's appointment. So that creates that anxiety and stress. So information brings power, and having information about what your options are, both for short and long term, really gives you that peace of mind, so that you can remove some of that anxiety, because you at least have the answers. You're not asking what ifs. Okay. We know that a lot of things that we're talking about in the next 2 sections is literally what Sunways, our company, specializes in, right? I kind of went briefly in the beginning about Sunways and what we do, but we're essentially a free service for seniors and their caregivers to compare what their care options are and help put a plan in place. Obviously, if the plan needs to be implemented, we help do that too. But most importantly, it's what's the plan? And so please know that you can be leaning on us, and we're a free service to help do all of the things we're going to be talking about in this section.
And I can't tell you how valuable that service is, because my caregivers trust me, and I don't affiliate myself with a lot of different communities because I can't babysit them. It could be the most fabulous community in the world, and then 2 years later, But that's what you gals do. And you show all those different options, and you give people different options that depending on what kind of place they want and what their budget is and everything. And that's just so important. And to pre-plan that is huge. So thank you for what you do.
No, well, thank you for saying that. And we know how much the community and the support groups that you support do trust you. So obviously you saying that means a lot to us. And sometimes, again, like we were talking about slowing down and just having some time to be intentional, it's really just taking some time, and when we say time, that can also be a scary term. We mean a 15 to 30 minute phone call with one of us. because we know what questions to ask. This is what we do for a living, right? So when you don't even, as a caregiver, know what questions to ask, let alone where to find those answers, that's where it becomes really heavy. And that's where the stress and anxiety come from. So it's really just one action item, and that is reaching out to us. And then we'll take the wheel and say, okay, let's go through it, right? And it's our job to simplify and really let you know what's available, because you don't know what you don't know. But, just kind of going through a couple bullet points of what we mean when we say forward planning to release that stress is, making sure that you do have your legal documents together. And I know that there's some amazing elder care lawyers that are coming on with this caregiver conference, which is going to give you a ton of information about this, but making sure, things like POA and will are taken care of, that you have your healthcare information together in case it's needed. And so your loved ones have those things, right? Or where all of your loved ones, specialists and general practitioner information is, et cetera. And it's all organized in one place. Financial information, really making sure that we're taking a little bit of time to understand specifics about income and assets and what's coming through the pipeline, for nothing else, so that we can be doing some loose brainstorming about what happens if and when care is needed, whether it's in the house or outside of the house or whatever it is. What can we afford? I think that out of all of these bullet points, that is the biggest stressor that we hear, is the financial piece. And what is this going to cost? And even just having a basic conversation. It's like on the phone when we're talking to caregivers, we literally hear the weight lifted, because they at least have the answers. Now, I'm not saying that it's always the answers they want to hear, but at least they have the facts. And now we can be putting steps in place to make sure they're supported with whatever limitations they have. Does that make sense? I don't know if, Linda, you would say anything to that.
Totally. I think that's so important. And then there's ways, because many times you may not think you are able to afford it, but you can go see an elder care attorney. There's a way they can protect your assets. There's a lot of stuff. So don't panic.
Exactly. But when we're getting ahead of it, that's what we're doing. We're avoiding that stress down the line and avoiding the burnout, which is what the whole presentation today is about.
The last thing your loved one wants to see you is burned out.
Yeah.
Do I want my daughter taking care of me and I see she's a mess and she's not eating and she's not sleeping? No. So let's just
and then what happens to the caregiver? They end up getting sick, or they end up,
Oh, they just feel so bad.
Yeah.
Right.
They feel so bad. So let's just talk about it. It's happening.
Right. Exactly. And I think, we were talking about the law of attraction earlier. I think whether you believe in that or you don't, I think that there's a certain fear that people do have unconsciously, that by talking about this, I'm inviting this into my life. AKA like, well, my loved one never wants to go into assisted living, so we couldn't even talk about what that would look like because they never want that to happen. So we're not even, it's like, okay, you're not in, we know what the plan A is. Let's just make sure that we're talking about these other options so that it's taking the fear of the unknown away from it.
Yeah.
But being able to touch on what home care options look like. Obviously, 99% of the people that we work with on a daily basis, their number one goal is to age in place at home and to stay at home for as long as possible. And we respect that, support that, and want to cultivate that. At the same time, we also know that many things happen in life and in the care journey that don't allow that to happen. So we need to make sure that as a caregiver, you're staying in control. And that control is brought to you by information and information being power in that way, right? And that talks also about senior living community options. What do these different levels of care look like? What do these different costs look like? What are some options in my area, et cetera? Again, doesn't mean that we're moving in tomorrow. It's just purely arming you with that information to take that stigma and stress away. But the biggest thing that I'll kind of end on with this section, with planning for the short term or long term for that matter, is that, it's great to do all of these things and have a plan, but it's not going to be put in place if no one knows about it. So just because you're having these internal dialogues doesn't mean that other people, including your loved one that you're caring for, or other siblings or family members, know about it and can support the plan to happen. We need to be talking about it. So the communication piece is huge. And I know, Linda, you feel really strongly about that.
Yeah, when everyone's included, we can come to a lot of solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a family that I'm working with right now, and I'm working with one sibling. Mm-hmm. We had this plan that we've been working towards these goals for weeks now. And then the whole time there was her sister who was on a totally different path. So definitely talking about things and making sure everyone's on the same page, because then it also adds stress for the loved one.
Yeah,
everyone's pulling in different directions, nothing's getting done,
and wasted effort, right? You have that's a perfect example of, you have two siblings that care very much and are working really hard to put a plan together, and they're going to cancel each other out. So now their efforts are being undone, which then adds to stress, anxiety, burnout, because you're like, what the heck was I just doing for 2.5 weeks, right?
Well, if the two sisters aren't talking about this, they're not going to find solutions together. And you guys are kind of like a mediator, even to say, well, do you know there's another option? Maybe they don't even know there are other options.
Yeah, getting everybody on the same page for sure. Mediator, therapist, that's definitely one of the hats, one of the daily hats, right? There's a lot of different hats that are worn. But as we're finishing up this section, again, any sort of questions that you have about resources or even your own specific experience with some of the things that we've been talking about in this section of just the value of planning, please comment, because we'll go through that. We'll definitely go through that at the end.
And someone just asked, is gratitude practice the same as reflective writing? Yeah,
sure.
It's the same thing. Just gratitude is usually shorter. You can just bullet point it, where reflective writing is just more involved. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I would say if you have a strong gratitude practice, I mean, that's what you're being reflective, right? You're reflecting on things that have happened or things in your life that you're grateful for. So I think, integrating that into a writing prompt, or instead of it being bullet pointed like me, but that's actually how my brain works. Everything has a bullet point.
But some people just free writing.
I think could be really helpful, but
and nothing has to be fancy about your writing. I have journals that I wrote in that I cried, that I scribbled, that I cursed. I don't spell words right. That's not what it's about. It's about getting it out.
Yep. And in the words of my husband, done is better than perfect. He literally doesn't physically, but literally hammers that into me every single day, which is been a hard concept for me, just as a person. I want everything to be done and done perfectly at all times. But it's just a matter of getting the momentum, starting to do it, and then it evolves over time. My morning gratitude practice is completely different than it was 5 years ago, and it's changed 100 times in between, depending on what season of life I'm in, and all of those things. So it's giving yourself grace with that. And that's why sometimes it's purely just coming up with something. I mean, there's days that it's just find something and say it to yourself before you get out of bed. And then other times you have 45 minutes to do a whole,
I like that,
journal entry. But that's a great question. Is there anything else in there that you want to?
Somebody just said, the revocable living trust was a plus because it outlines everything that lessens the sibling internal family fights.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep. And there's going to be so much information over the next couple of days shared about things along those lines from elder care lawyers and professionals that is literally what they specialize in, of really understanding what trusts and documents and, Medicaid planning and all of these different things. So that's exciting for everyone.
I'm so very blessed to be surrounded by professionals that truly care and want to make a difference in our community for our and their loved ones. And that's a blessing. And I thank you for being part of that blessing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having us. So our third and final section is probably the hardest. It's the easiest, but the hardest. And that is how to identify your needs and how to ask for help and when to ask for help, right? Asking for help is usually not a caregiver strength, at least none of the caregivers we know, and we know a lot of them. But it's one of the most important things to learn and to practice and to be working on. And sometimes it's not even just asking for help. It's accepting the help when somebody offers it.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes it's just knowing the help is there, because your first thing, respite care, I didn't find out what respite care was till I was in my bereavement group.
Yeah. And respite care is lots of things, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So sometimes it's just getting like a little mental break, a little physical and mental break. But yeah, lots of ways to get respite care. And yeah, touching back on just not being able to ask for help. I know, sometimes as a caregiver, you just carry a lot of guilt and you feel like I'm the one that's around this person all the time. I know what they like. I know how to do things.
It's my
No
responsibility.
So how would how is everything going to work out? So just understanding, just because it's not the way you might do it. But it can also be a beautiful thing, that person being able to connect with someone else.
I always say that caregivers have the AAA dilemma. They don't ask for help, they don't accept help, and they don't acknowledge themselves. Because what happens is your neighbor, your friend, whoever it is, asks, is it something I can do to help you? And this is what the caregiver says every time. No, I'm okay. Which we know is furthest from the truth.
Yep.
But I think when we ask them, now we put another thing on their head. Like, I got to put something else on my list, what you can help me with. So I suggest the caregiver to take a little time to just write down a list of some things you can accept help with. Because what's going to happen is people are going to stop asking. And then because they don't want to get in your space. And then you're home at night crying, I have to do this all by myself because you said no to everybody.
Absolutely. And you took the words right out of our mouth. Actually, our point, what up there on that list, our third thing of meal services, what we were going to talk about is it's meal services, it's housekeeping, it's repairs around your house, it's grocery shopping. Yeah. It's a great point, Linda. It's just stopping and making a point to write down some pain points so that you and save it in the doc section of your phone, write it down somewhere and put it on your fridge. And when somebody asks, hey, what could I do? You hold yourself accountable to responding to that. Like, this is what I could use, because I think, like you were kind of alluding to this, that as much as we think as caregivers that nobody could do it like us and all of those things, when somebody who loves you asks you what they can do to help, they mean it. Yeah. And by allowing them to help you, you're giving them purpose. So if you need to tell yourself that like by them helping you, you're helping them, maybe that allows you to let that in, but it's true. You're giving them purpose.
Well, I'll tell you, I remember when a gal coming into a support group, she had been in the support group for a long time. And one week she goes, I let my neighbor mow the lawn. And we're all like, yay. She said, but I told him he doesn't have to edge it. We're like, no, let him edge it.
Baby steps.
You're not the only person that can mow a lawn. You're not the only person that can do laundry, please.
Yeah. No, little things. So no, that is like absolutely a great point. But I guess kind of finishing up maybe the respite care area.
And going up back to respite care. So lots of different ways to get respite care. Little small breaks. Maybe you are able to get away for a walk real quick, or have somebody come over and help. There's private duty home care, hiring a caregiver. I always tell families, like, the best thing is to have a schedule. It doesn't have to be, 7 days a week, 8 hours a day. You can have someone come 3 hours, 4 times a week or whatever. But as long as it's something consistent,
One day,
I think
like one day, like allow you to every Sunday, it allows you to go to church on your own, to be able to enjoy that service and have that time and then go grocery shopping and come home. Like, but you're not worrying about leaving your loved one at home or what's going on. Like, so, I mean, it could be so simple.
Yeah. Put it on your calendar, make it a schedule.
Yep.
Then you have to hold yourself to it.
We have a couple questions here. One says, my husband came out of brain surgery 6 years ago, half paralyzed. I wish I had asked for help sooner. How can you know when to ask? When you're ready to jump off the bridge.
No. Before that, start asking for help right off the bat, because once you get too deep into the thick of things, I feel like it gets harder.
Yeah. Because you're like, I don't even know where to start.
And start understanding that it's okay to ask for help and have these little breaks for yourself.
Well, and in the beginning,
says, you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to make sure that that you're filled.
Yeah, because if you start asking in the beginning when it first happens, then people are used to that. If you wait too long to ask, they don't think you need the help. They think, oh, she's just doing her thing, she's fine, and then you get resentful then.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
but I think that once you start having those feelings of overwhelm creep in, that it is, and you used the example earlier, Lisa, about writing it down, writing almost your to-do list down, is that if you even like the week that somebody's discharged back from the hospital and things are different, things have changed overnight, keeping a running list, one for yourself, because it organizes it in your brain so that it's not so everything floating around. Yeah. But two, you actually have something. So when you do get a call from your sister saying, what can I do? You being able to be like, well, here's my to-do list. Easiest thing, could you go grocery shopping for us?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, and you already have it down.
Somebody just said, I have a sibling who wants to help out, but never follows through. And it always falls on me, any advice. And I think you need to sit down with your sister and you need to make a list. This is what you're going to do. When your sister says, how can I help? You have to say specifically, can you please take mom to the doctor on Tuesday?
Right.
And you need to get more specific, and you might have to follow up with it a little bit.
And I think too, that there's also a level of really understanding what people are capable of and what people are not, as in, right. Using an example of this sister, quote unquote, that maybe they keep on not following through because you're asking them to do tasks that are outside of their capabilities or their comfort zone. Like, can you research this? Or, hey, can you pay bills? And like, that's like asking me to pay somebody's bills. Like, you don't want me near your bills. Let me tell you. Okay. But if you tell me that you just need a ride to the doctor's appointment, or you just need X, Y, and you need to,
and you just do the grocery shopping.
Right. So I think that it's acknowledging people's strengths and weaknesses and not putting them in a position to fail, and continuing to ask them to do things that they're not going to be able to follow through on. And maybe having an open conversation with them of saying, listen, I feel like I've been asking you to do X, Y, and Z, and you're not following through. Like, do I need to communicate differently? Do I need to give different tasks because I need help and I feel like I can't lean on you? So it's having that open.
Just tell me what you would like to help mom with.
Right. What can you do?
Let's work it out. Maybe you love doing laundry. Right. And I haven't even thought about this, Right. So have the conversation.
Yeah. That's a great question though. So hopefully that helps.
And then somebody else said, what would you pay for home care for an individual? And I think that there's a lot of options there.
Yeah.
Because there are all different kinds of options. So for that person, I would suggest is you contact Sunways and they'll have the conversation with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because you have private, you have services, depending on the amount and the frequency, that's going to impact it. So great point. So let's talk about your unique situation and being able to kind of give you ballparks on what to expect. So you can budget.
Yep. Some other good ideas real quick for respite are adult day centers.
Yeah.
A great way for your loved one to get out. Again, try to have consistency with the days that they go so they can meet some other people. But a great way to be engaged and get socialization, have meals, and be in a safe place where your care needs are also taken care of.
Yep.
And then short-term assisted living memory care. There's a lot of communities out there that on weekly basis or a monthly basis will take your loved one in for respite care. You literally show up with your clothes and your
toothbrush,
toiletries,
right?
and there's a room that's all set up for you. The care is provided. You're in a safe place, and it's a great way. If your loved one needs a break, needs to stay home, has a vacation they want to go on,
right?
So
exactly. If there's your niece is getting married in California and you really want to be there, but it's just all of these moving parts, it allows you to really take that break and do something for yourself, but know that they're getting that 24/7 support.
And that's a fabulous way to introduce your loved one to a community.
mm-hmm.
Because I've had people that have done that, and when they came back from their wedding or whatever, there was a much easier conversation after that of mom maybe going into a place because she had already experienced it on a non-stressful level,
Yeah. No, completely agree with that. And our next, point there is support groups. We've touched on this multiple times, interweaving in our presentation, and actually the last 15 minutes of Dr. Kate's presentation that we watched before coming on. You guys were speaking a lot about that. I know that you're both extremely passionate about the support or the benefits of support groups, but Dr. Kate used a term normalization. And that's why it's so powerful. Completely agree with that, because it just that feeling of nobody else gets it. I'm alone. I'm doing this alone. And then you're surrounded by others that are walking a really similar journey. And just the amount of tips and tricks that you just naturally take on because people are sharing what's working, and maybe even more importantly, what's not working. So you don't have to make the same mistakes. You can just bypass
and sometimes,
them.
I'm telling you, sometimes in a support group, we just laugh the whole time because it's like, you did what? Oh, I did that same thing. I thought I was the only one that did that,
Absolutely. But so incredibly important. And we're lucky nowadays that a support group doesn't mean it has to be face to face.
Yeah.
I feel like all three of us would agree that would be amazing, because just the physical presence of others going through this is real. And it's that socialization and community too. But we're lucky with technology that the amount of Zoom support groups, Facebook groups, all of these things that, you're working full time as a caregiver and you've got 3 kids and you're juggling helping mom and dad, like you could be doing that at 10 o'clock at night, so right. Just know that there's other things that aren't just between 9 to 5 going and sitting in a room with other people when we say support groups.
Well, and you might live in a rural area. I have support groups, that started after COVID that people are in it now because they never could go to a support group before because there was never one near them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, 100%. Obviously that third section, meal services, we kind of skipped to that one when we were talking about have that laundry to do, like literally laundry list, that to-do list, so that even if you're not asking for help, just accept it when people offer it, that sometimes might be a little bit easier.
Yeah. And I think the next one with siblings and family members, all throughout we spoke a lot on all these bullet points that we have, but making sure that the conversations that you're having include the other family members, making sure everyone's on the same page, delegating different tasks, who can do things stronger. This sister, can take care of the bills. I'm going to take care of more the caregiver aspect. So making sure conversations are happening and everyone's on the same page, I think is
so important.
The biggest takeaway.
Yeah. And brainstorm about how because of those different capabilities, different ways that they can help. And, if you are the primary caregiver, whether you're the spouse or you're kind of like the main go-to sibling, that doesn't mean that there's some of these smaller minimal tasks that can be done remotely that can if a lot of the little things are taken off your plate, it allows you to just focus on the big things that you can't delegate, right? For one reason or another. Like, for example, your brother who lives in Minnesota, he can do the weekly ordering on Shipt for delivery for groceries.
Right.
Or your sister, Susan, who lives in Connecticut, can help with automatic bill pay online.
Right.
These are things that they don't need to be there checking in on mom and dad or with your loved one. but they can
It
still
takes
be
a lot,
helping. It's
yeah.
just these little things and trying to find those areas to delegate that.
I have to tell you, I have one brilliant family that I know, and they meet every year on New Year's Day, and they all dress in black. And they all have the conversation of what we may be coming up against this next coming year. Neither of their parents need any help yet, but one daughter says, I would love to do laundry for them, or I definitely would take care of the bills. Well, then they come back a year later, and another one says, my kid just graduated school, so I have a bunch of more time now. I could do this. So they always have a plan in place that they've agreed with, and they make a joke out of it. Maybe the documents need to be changed because maybe you need a new healthcare surrogate or something. But they're so prepared. It makes me so happy, and we can all do that.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's 100%. It's what works for you. But I love that, and they hold themselves accountable to it. So that's awesome. And then last but not least, the senior living concierge, that's us, right?
Yep. Yeah.
A lot of the things that we talked about today, hopefully it gave you some insight, but no one should be walking the caregiver journey alone. That's literally why my husband and I started Sunways, because we saw in our family when things changed, how overwhelming that journey was. And every situation and everybody's situation is unique. So we touched on a lot of things today, but in a very vague, big picture way. When you do give us a call or reach out to us and you're speaking directly with somebody on our team, a senior living concierge, we're specifically going through your unique situation, location, budget, care needs, family dynamics, yada, 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 to be able to really pinpoint plans and resources and care options so that you just pretty much have that in a nice little package in a bow to be able to be speaking to your other loved ones and doing that with. But we like to think of ourselves kind of as the caregiver life jacket, or hopefully, to do that. And in the beginning of the presentation, Linda mentioned our website. We have so much information on our website. I don't think so our phone number is there on the last one, but our website is sunwayseniorliving.com. So you don't have to remember how to spell concierge. You're off the hook. It's just sunwayseniorliving.com is our website. And on there, we have a caregiver blog. We post a new article every single week with tips, tricks, resources, so much information. And it's all organized there too for you to be able to search specific topics, whether it's Parkinson's, veteran benefits, whatever it might be, to be able to pull up that information. Obviously, that's our phone number right there. And you could also contact us directly through the website as well.
Okay, we have a couple of comments here. One person said, what if you have no one to help? No one asks if you need help or offers help. And anyone you have asked for help comes up with excuses of why they can't help. My suggestion to you is come to one of my support groups or call me and we can discuss this. Many times you can find help through your church. Maybe you can find help through your neighbors you don't even know you have. I have two ladies in my one support group, and they each take care of their moms. And both their moms have about the same diagnosis. So on Tuesday, the one lady takes both of the moms for 3 hours. And on Thursday, the other gal takes both of the moms for 3 hours. And then on Fridays, they all go to lunch and the movie together. So you might be finding help from someone that's in the same boat as you even. So that's my answer to you. Then another person said, my gratitude journal will include you two ladies. Thank you for this. And then another one says,
thank you.
This has been very useful information. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, thank you. I love that tip there, Linda, about utilizing people in a support group or others. I think that just alone is why a support group is so valuable, because it is human nature to feel so alone when you don't feel like you have family or friends to pull on for that help. Yeah. But then you end up going to a support group and you realize there's 6 other people that are living that exact same reality, that feel the exact same way, that you guys can be each other's support. Yeah. So, no, I think that's perfect.
All righty. What's the last thing you want our caregivers to hear today?
We love you.
We love you too. Thank you, ladies.
That's it.
Thank
We'll
you,
chat
Linda.
soon.
Thank you for doing this, and thank you for all you do.
You're welcome.